Then we move to the next session, chaired by Nadia.
So thank you. This is a very important session. I know we are all tired, but we have many things to do these days. And so now we will listen to Emma. Are you there, Emma?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good. Thank you for being with us, for coming back. And so she will talk about Adaptation Fund and UNESCO IOC involvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nadia. And so just to start, perhaps a little bit of background as to selection of the Adaptation Fund and the areas in general. Part of the discussion at the CoastPredict level in terms of how do we move out and actually run and do pilots was where can we find sufficient resources, and perhaps our focus should be on areas that are have lower levels of infrastructure now, that if we really want to make a truly global CoastPredict change, we will need to kind of help with capacity in regions that have less. And so this kind of influenced the ideas to go after the Adaptation Fund. I would say that Nadia could be giving this talk instead of me, because certainly Nadia has been instrumental in identifying the Adaptation Fund as possibly, amongst climate and global funds for less developed countries as being really a key target for us and really in line with CoastPredict. And Nadia has met with members of the Adaptation Fund and understood more about the process, but also, to understand that they really are interested in receiving applications for the ocean or the marine environment. It's like many climate funds, they're more green than blue, let's say, and we know this is an issue. As I mentioned in the presentation this morning, for those that were there, to see that this is also a part. It's important. I think it's really important for the regions, for GOOS and for the IOC to be involved in supporting regions. In the end are who receive the funding to support development of suitable coordination and observing and forecasting infrastructure in the region. And so this is work that CoastPredict is evolving together with IOC and with UNESCO, and it is a new area for us to activate. But hopefully, CoastPredict is a pioneering project, and this will be a pioneer that will help us support regions in the future. And we're going to hear from some of those regions next, as far as I understand. And so, out of the Global Coast Survey and out of the knowledge of the regions, there have been 3 regions that have come up as early contenders. And so the work, and this is the Caribbean, this is the Westpac region, and the Pacific Island region, and then other regions. Once we have a bit more of a format, we can sort of move out and go further. But the idea is to put in 3 what are called concept notes this year into the Adaptation Fund for one for each of these regions, but also that there will be a similar format in terms of the sort the if you like, the work packages or the pieces that we're going to build, so that there is a real CoastPredict synthesis across this, but implemented in specific projects and through the specific institutions and partners in the region that are part of the Global Coast survey. Okay, so these 3 pilot regions for the for going into the Adaptation Fund. This work is, I would say, it's coming together. It has been a slightly slow process, but I think it's speeding up now as the ideas are coming together. It's not simple because the Adaptation Fund has, its requirements and needs. UNESCO has a way of working. We need everything to work at a level of, let's say, institutional financial management, and also achieve the aims of CoastPredict and the aims of all the partners. So as always, it's a negotiation to find the right approach there. What I think we have now is the outline of the structure we will need, and we will get this confirmed through internally through UNESCO, and then be able to hopefully produce these 3 concept notes in a relatively rapidly, and then have these submitted via UNESCO as through to the Adaptation Fund. And perhaps, I mean, I probably needed to start and say, why is UNESCO involved? It's because the Adaptation Fund has a structure that has an implementing partners. I guess these are organizations that have gone through the appropriate assessment by the Adaptation Fund. So the Adaptation Fund is trusting these implementing partners, and UNESCO will be reinitiated as an implementing partner as one of these organizations that can receive funds from the Adaptation Fund. And then you have a series of executing entities and executing partners for this in this structure. So it's a relatively complicated process. I'm really absolutely delighted, really, that we're moving forward with it. It's an important step, I think, for GOOS, for IOC, for CoastPredict program. But there is more work to do. And the second, key element is the work you will hear, I think, now from the pilot project areas about what those specifics look like. But this is the work is working with the key GOOS regional alliances, IO Caribe, Westpac, and SPC in the Pacific Islands. And this is this is extremely important to be able to strengthen the coordination and strengthen the the CoastPredict and the observations and the services in these areas towards the aims we've expressed in CoastPredict. So yeah, I mean, Nadia said it's important. I also feel that this is a really important action, and complicated though it is, I feel positive that that once we have our structures and we have a convincing argument that these well, I don't know for sure, but I really hope that this will lead to positive outcomes. After that, there will obviously be a lot of work to do in order to actually implement well, and hopefully, this wouldn't be the end of, it's not a one project. It's the aim to really try and move forward with more of a revolution in the coastal area, using this type of sourcing, this type of funding. But they are complicated to secure. So, Nadia, have I forgotten any important elements that you would perceive from the CoastPredict side?
I think very good. Thank you. Maybe we should
Do you have any
say that we had a consultation with UNESCO IOC in June, and there was a consultation that was done next to the assembly. Was it the assembly or the executive?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, it was in, yes, that's correct. So perhaps another sort of slightly, it's an internal description, but it's important in these processes that this work has visibility at the executive secretary level of IOC. So to make there will be a commitment from IOC to undertaking and to supporting this. So it's not a small thing, because there is it involves our IOC subcommissions, who are also in two of these cases the regional alliances in the Pacific, in the Caribbean and in Westpac. And so it's about strengthening those IOC offices and their capacity also to seek this type of funding and to gain that experience. So this work has visibility, and it's been signed off at the kind of GOOS director level, at the executive secretary level. And we also, at the IOC Executive Council, in June of last year, it is important that we have buy-in from our member states, the IOC member states, to the concept. And this also is an important checkpoint along the pathway that gives strength to the country's involvement, because at the end of the day, each of these Adaptation Fund projects will need high-level sign-off within and a letter of endorsement towards the countries wanting that these projects go ahead. They can't just be an IOC or CoastPredict idea. They need to be integrated into the countries, and the countries at a high level within their governments say this is what we want to do. And there are some other rules and regulations around that deeper into the structure. So when we did a side session at lunchtime at the IOC Executive Council to give visibility to the member states in the 3 potential regions that we were looking at, that this was happening, and to gain their feedback. And the response was overwhelmingly positive. And this, it really points the way towards a successful pathway and a way that IOC can, through its UNESCO connection, etc., give support in securing funding from these sort of large multi-agency funding sources associated with climate and other issues. So I hope that kind of described a little bit of the internal backing and support to this process, but it also gives some insight in that there are a number of steps along the way, and that it's being thought about really seriously as to what the implications are, and to ensure that we have the system and structures in place to support CoastPredict and the regions in their delivery.
Thank you, Emma. So are there questions from the audience? Yeah. We have Alejandro Souza.
You were mentioning about the kind of government support to get this, and what level do you have to get it? I mean, at the moment, these kind of things, and at least in Mexico, we have a good relation with the fisheries department and with the science ministry. So it's something that we could start pushing towards it. Is that the kind of people that I should be talking to get your approval?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, that in different countries there are different ministries designated as signing off for Adaptation Fund projects. And so this is also something to mention, that the major recipients have to be designated as potential implementing countries, and it is written sort of within the rules of the Adaptation Fund, which, as you begin to understand, is by no means straightforward. The ministry that you have to go to. But you are exactly right that having good level contacts in a key ministry will help, and it may be the key ministry will help secure sort of it's a letter of endorsement, let's say, towards this project. The Adaptation Fund wants to know in the end, are the countries actually behind this, and that comes with this endorsement letter. So what we need to do is to get our structure correct, and then really start to work on securing these endorsement letters in the partner countries in each pilot global coast area. And I guess, I think you'll hear from the different groups what the initial ideas are around that. But you're absolutely right. It's this is a work that will take a little bit of time, and so it needs to be started as soon as we kind of have got that structure nailed down at the IOC level. Oh, one thing that is important to perhaps mention, because it may well come up in those discussions as well. With the Adaptation Fund, you can have there are different sorts of fundings, but you can have a single country fund, or you can have a regional fund. We discussed with the Adaptation Fund, or Nadia did, that the modularity of these, and we're going for the regional funding for two important reasons. One, it's the ocean, and to make up a patchwork of single country funds would not serve us well. And the regional approach, as we know, is really vital. Two, that when you have a regional project, there are, if you imagine the Adaptation Fund, is for land and all sorts of water resource funding and other areas of adaptation. If you have a regional fund, if you have a national fund, then having this project would take away from the amount of money any country is, be one part of what that country is allowed to receive from adaptation funding, and so you might be competing against other departments. But in this case, as it's a regional project, it doesn't count towards any sort of national amount, and therefore I would think it would seem you wouldn't have any sort of internal conflict or discussion or competition between land versus ocean funds. So that's perhaps a point to mention.
Yes, thank you. This is also very important. So, and also we have chosen to have a concept note first submitted.
Yes.
And the concept note does not require now the letter of commitment. But when we will be closer to the submission of the concept note, we have to have you already well into the, let's say, into the contacting the what is called the delegated authorities. These are delegated authorities. So yes, and this is part of the work that comes after the concept note. Concept note is something shorter, has practically the 5 components that you have seen, but most importantly has a decision on I would say I would prefer to do this before a decision on the management of the project. And given the importance of the local stakeholders, such as IOC Caribe and the nations. So what we would like to do with Emma is try to find what agreement between the Central UNESCO and the local offices. I mean, we have the same for Westpac, and so we would like to. It's somewhat different for the South Pacific Center. That is not an IOC subcommission, but again, we will have to examine the two cases, and we'll see how to do this. So hopefully this will be the first thing that we will solve. Then we'll submit the concept note and we work on the real proposal. Okay. And the letter of commitments, which will take some time. We all know our ministries. They're not so efficient to write letters, isn't it?
No, but I mean, and to continue that discussion, but with a concept note, then perhaps that is a very good time to start to wake up or start to reach out to the relevant designating authorities in the countries that we intend to be working with.
Yeah, thanks, Emma, from me too. I just wanted to add that as important as all the work and the process that Emma and Nadia have described are, I don't want you to get the impression that nothing is being done towards the writing of the proposal while all this is happening, okay? It has been a lot of work, a lot of meetings, obviously online, for all the regions, and, writing assignments and discussions on the partners and contacting the different countries. I'm involved mainly with the Caribbean one, so I can speak for that one, and that, we really have tried to be very inclusive and really, bring to the table everyone who is interested in coming. And so a lot of progress in parallel, right? But obviously the process in terms of the timeline is what was described.
Yes, thank you. And again, so thanks again, Emma, for being available. And so we will continue now with the presentation of the three initial project proposals. So the first one will be presented by Edgar Cabrera from IOC Caribe. Please, Edgar. Edgar, is a highly practitioner and international player in the field. He has been for many years supporting JCOM, the Joint Committee for Oceanography and Marine Meteorology. And I can't tell you how much I appreciated his work when he was at WMO. So it is a great pleasure to have him in the group of the Caribbean and give his experience to us. Thank you, Eric.
Gracias mille, Professora. So for me, it's also a pleasure to be here, and I will give this presentation on behalf of the Coal Task Force for the Tropical Americas and the Caribbean. This is a group that was established in several regions through the UN Ocean Decade to support the implementation on the Decade programs, and in this case, also to support IOC Caribe. IOC Caribe is the subcommission for the Caribbean and adjacent waters in the Caribbean. So it's really the wider Caribbean part, and it's 40 years of existence now. So as Professor Pinardi mentioned, also for me, I was involved in all these matters on GOOS implementation since inception, both as a physical oceanographer in my country, after on the WMO as a part of the secretariat, head of the mission, head of the program, and now in this role. So it's very good for me. So this is the tropical Americas and the Caribbean region. So as mentioned, the subcommission of the IOC is based in Cartagena, Indias, in my country, in Colombia, after an agreement between UNESCO and the host country. IOCaribe, there are 32 member states and 16 territories that this is all the wider Caribbean, and we mean territories are the one that are located physically in the Caribbean, but we link in Europe with France. In the case of the Martinique, Guadeloupe, and the British island or British territories, and the Spain through the link with the Ibero-American countries, the United States, Canada, and the Netherlands. In the concept of the tropical Americas, so we expand the part of the Caribbean to the Eastern Pacific tropical. That means because there are countries that they have coast, in the case of Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, and Mexico, others that they have coast in the Caribbean and coast in the Pacific, so we cannot exclude the part. So when come the decade, there was established a series of groups to think on the status. And I recall the challenges of the decade and several challenges. It was mentioned this morning on the challenge on enhanced multi-hazard early warning system, on sustained ocean observations, behavioral change, but also the outcomes of the decade. And so we devised the seven outcomes of the decade on the safe ocean, predicted ocean, accessible ocean, healthy ocean, productive ocean, inspiring ocean. So we make 2 years of work on through the IOCaribe members, and well-defined. So it's a baseline document, a baseline assessment that is useful for this. And there were a set of projects submitted, especially during the call for action 2. And in this call for action, there was this one called Integrated Coastal Hazard Early Warning System and Service for the TAC region, because the region identified that it's a gap. So it's the Integrated Coastal Hazard. At that moment, we were not aware that was the CoastPredict governance, or the CoastPredict initiative in place, but the Secretariat in Paris, so when they endorse this program, they allocate or affiliate. That was the work to the CoastPredict. So really, that means that we were in the same way of thinking between the regional and the global and the group of Professor Pinardi. So really, this was the develop a regional multi-hazard ocean data, the empowers and recognize the national and local policy and decision-making and individual response for protection of livelihoods. Why? Because we have in the Caribbean a series of hazards that are present, the hurricane, this is the hurricane season that come, the sea level rise, the tsunami, because there are the tsunami and coastal hazard group. And so, but there is not really an integration. So for that, the purpose of this project that was endorsed by the decade is to have this integration part. So the objectives, I will not, tomorrow we will have a breakout group on the predict on time, and we can elaborate better, but this is really what we intend to prioritize the integration of existing and new coastal hazard early warning system and services. Because as mentioned, there are other entities that are working in the region, not only the IOC of UNESCO that is responsible for the tsunami part, but they have the WMO, the World Meteorological Organization, in all the weather, and especially the hurricane committees. And we have the climate risk early warning system that they have a project in the Caribbean. And we have other initiatives that we need to integrate and look for. So there are linkers between regional and international efforts, multi-hazard framework, and also the regional, national, and local impacts. So here to increase the collaboration between regional disaster risk reduction activities, and also I need to mention that there is the UN-DRR Disaster Risk Reduction Group that are all based in the Caribbean, located one office in Panama and the second one in Barbados, that need to work together, and they work in the formulation of these projects. So we came here as an affiliated project two years ago, and we received the information on this GlobalCoast and the need for make this survey. So we were part of this survey. We communicate with the countries, and in that moment there was the Caribbean divided in 4 subregions. So now you will see 2, but then in the eastern there were 2, and in the western 2 subregions, and we communicated widely within the network of the IOCaribe. That was the secretariat that provided this support. And you see the countries that reply to this survey that are identified also as a pilot site, because there was one thing to the survey, and then the pilot sites identified. So in the Western Caribbean, basically the Trinidad and Tobago, we have a strong community and a Caribbean Meteorological Office or organization there. The Dominican Republic, where we have a former coastal inundation forecasting demonstration project that is, in some sense, is a predecessor to this CoastPredict initiative in the region. Professor Pinari at that time was the head of the JCAM secretariat, and we implement, and the other were Fiji, Bangladesh, the Dominican Republic, and Indonesia. So in more or less, this is the same. We are making continuity. And Barbados, as I mentioned, in Barbados, we have this UNDRR office, but we have also this Caribbean International Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology that will provide support. In the Western Caribbean, we have Colombia, and with the stronger entities of the DMAR, that is the Maritime Authority responsible for the oceanographic part, the INVERMAR, that is on the environmental, but it's also OTCA for the Caribbean. In Panama, because there are the basic agencies on UN, the regional agencies are based there, and Mexico, that with several, here is more academic entities with responsibility that submit the survey. So these are the 2 regions, and now we are in the process on, as described by Emma Heslop and by CoastPredict, to build this concept note for the Adaptation Fund. So there is what I was trying to flow is that there is a lot of work that is already done. So it's not that we built on scratch, but we have the surveys, we have the information, we have the assessment, and now we will build the concept note as intelligent as we can, with the guidance of CoastPredict, and with the guidance and support of the secretariat, that is IOCaribe Secretariat and this drafting group. So here on the GlobalCoast evaluation of the pilot sites, so there is also work that was done through the CoastPredict, and this is a slide coming from the CoastPredict Secretariat. And they see the Eastern Caribbean, they have a difference between the Eastern Caribbean and the Western Caribbean on the capacities and the needs. So I will not wait too much here, because, but mention that the status on the remote sensing, on the in-situ observations, on the forecasting system, on the data management plan. So each of the sites or each of the regions, they have different type of development, but they can contribute and participate. And also on the needs. So this come on the call impact areas, or impact focus areas, if I am correct, impact areas. And so there is a concurrence on both regions, on both sub-regions, let's say, on the impact of climate change, on the disaster risk reduction, on the part of the marine spatial planning, and also on the operational part, on the safe ocean, calling the operational oceanography in some way, and the safe of navigation in the frame of SOLAS, of this Convention of the Law of the Sea. So these are matters that were identified during the survey, and now we as was presented this afternoon by Giovanni Copini. So we need to look on the list of solutions that are available, how we can accommodate this solution, our needs, and also how the solutions can be solve the problems of the sites. So it's a two-way work. The GlobalCoast cloud was also this slide coming from CoastPredict. So we are now the challenge to identify what are the information that will be in the cloud, how the countries need to be ready to understand this cloud, what are the requirements. If I understand correctly, this is a very, very wide, very robust internet options, and especially looking on these solutions, list of solutions, how the appropriate centers or the recipient entities will work. So this is our presentation. I take a note on the way forward. So on this way forward is as mentioned, we will have a drafting group. Willy and Nadia were guiding us from part of the CoastPredict. We have the secretariat, Lorna Innis, that is the head of the secretariat, and the drafting group that is there supporting. And perhaps now after the EMA presentation, I'm looking that there will be a series of events coming from IOCaribe in the near future. We have an IOCaribe session, we have a task group session, also we have a Goose Caribbean. So there will be a moment for us to help to socialize this. Also, I mentioned with the support of CoastPredict, I also represented this group in two events in last year in the Caribbean. One, there was a sea ties event on this coastal collision that will be presented in the Conference of the Oceans in June, and we present CoastPredict, and they will able to they are now willing to participate. And in Cartagena and in December, we launched the roadmap implementation for the ocean decade, and the coastal resilience and coastal part is a key component, and we also submit a presentation on CoastPredict. So we are at your orders, Professor, and any comments, and please. Thank you. Yes.
Questions for Edgar? Okay, maybe we'll have some more comments at the end. Thank you very much, Edgar. And now Bipendra Prakash. Yes. From the Secretariat of the Pacific Community. We're also very happy that they are working with us and showing their problems and how to implement innovation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Nadia, and good afternoon, everyone. Or shall we be calling it evening now? I realize that it's quite late in the day, and I'll try my best to, keep within the allocated time of 10 minutes, maybe a little over 10 minutes. So, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet. It's a pleasure to be here and to present the Pacific Island pilot sites for the CoastPredict Adaptation Fund proposal. This is the region we are talking about, 22 countries and territories in the vast Pacific Ocean, roughly around 10 million people, relatively small compared to global standard. But we are talking about huge ocean space. In fact, 20% of the world's EEZ is in this part of the globe. In terms of the importance of coastal areas. If we exclude Papua New Guinea, more than 90% of our people live within 5 kilometers of the coast. And more than 50% of our infrastructure are within just 500 meters of the coast. So probably you realize the importance of, coastal areas in this part of the world. Before I jump into the needs and challenges for the region, I just wanted to give a bit of background of, how the region is organized. We have countries as small as Niue, which has just over 1,000 people, and a country like Papua New Guinea, which has 6 million or so people. So quite diverse, but most of the countries are quite small. So what the region has done is that it has developed two treaty-based intergovernmental organizations. One is the Secretariat of the Pacific Community, and I represent SPC, Secretariat of the Pacific Community, and the second one is the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program. So the SPC is the is mandated to provide technical and scientific advice to countries and territories in the region. SPREP also does similar work, but if you talk the ocean space, they are more concentrating on the governance side of ocean. Both SPC, SPREP are accredited regional implementing entities to Adaptation Fund. In particular, if you look at SPC, we have 150 staff working in the ocean space. It's quite a big organization, so it has provides technical advice and scientific advice on a range of issues. But specifically, if you look at ocean, we have 150 staff, 2 divisions dedicated for ocean work, and we have got integrated programs as well. One is called Pacific Data Hub and the Pacific Community Center for Ocean Science. And our involvement in UN Decade and Goose related work involves membership of the Decade Advisory Board, member of the Goose Steering Committee. We are the host of one of the Goose GRAs called the Pacific Island Global Ocean Observing System. We are the host of the Decade Collaborative Center for the Pacific Island as well. So probably what I'll do, I will not go into too much of detail, and probably you may have heard this, number of times. But these needs are from, a number of consultations which we have done in the region over the years, and some of the national level workshops, which involves a variety of stakeholders. So one of the areas which really needs strengthening is the forecasting and warning services. This includes the multi-hazard early warning systems. We also need there's an obvious need for higher resolution wave, current, and coastal inundation in some parts of the Pacific. It's some parts of some of the countries have the available some of this modeling capacity, but there's of course needs to develop higher resolution models, and this again needs baseline data as well, which is quite significantly lacking in our region. Bathymetry, topography. There are countries like Tuvalu, for example, they have done pretty good job. They have kind of done a LiDAR survey of all of its 12 islands, but there's majority of the countries there's limited observations, baseline data. In terms of strengthening of detection and monitoring services, we have some ocean monitoring going on. But still there are a lot of challenges in terms of sustainability and as well as maintenance of these existing equipments which are there, and also there's a great need for expanding from what we have at present. There's very little observations. In fact, number of buoys currently in the region, that vast ocean space. There's a couple of floating ones, but the ones which are moved, there's only 9 buoys, wave buoys in the region. So just to give you an appreciation of the gaps which we have. I won't go into detail of each of in the interest of time, different ocean observation requirements, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there's in the late when you come to question and answer. The strengthening of communication and partnership, of course, co-designing of ocean applications for various sectors, including applications such as search and rescue, maritime and navigational safety. Fisheries is a big thing in the region. A number of Pacific Island countries, more than half of their GDP is fisheries, tuna. Tourism, there's a heavy reliant in the region on tourism. Coastal risk assessment, we have already started relocating our people in Fiji. We have done relocation of 6 communities, entire communities in the last decade, and 43 communities have been identified as requiring immediate relocation. So coastal risk assessment, hazard mapping, marine spatial planning, adaptation planning, all this is quite important, and improving the ICT and communication systems as well. Strengthening of ocean capacity. So when we talk about oceanographic capacity, of course, there's a need for building national level capacity in oceanography. There's hardly any national oceanographic capacity, but you also need to consider that these countries are quite small, and some of the capacities cannot be built at a national level, and you need to build these capacities at a a regional level to provide support to the national. So building capacity of regional organizations such as SPC, SPREP, it's important as well. There's a need for capacity building in a wide range of areas, including maintenance of equipment, ocean science, coastal processes, communication. So based on the investment in coastal prediction services, we have identified 7 pilot sites. This includes Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, and Kiribati, which had very limited investment at present time. Then there's countries like Tuvalu, Niue, and Cook Islands, which have some investment. But there's of course always need for strengthening that, and also sustaining what has been done. And there's Fiji as well, which was one of the coastal inundation forecast demonstration, was part of the coastal inundation forecast demonstration project, and there was some work done a couple of years back, and we would like to see that that work is built from there and strengthened. All right, these are the objectives of the Pacific Islands Coastal Adaptation Fund proposal. It's probably we have gone through it, so I will try to breeze through it. So these are the objectives. So first is co-designing and implementing real-time cost-efficient coastal monitoring system based on satellites, and as well as in situ observations with a particular focus on citizen science, all connected to digital infrastructure. There's also need for co-design and implementation of a digital twin for data analytics, numerical modeling, and the service deliveries. The third one is the co-design and implementation of people-centered multi-hazard early warning systems, which should be based on existing initiatives and address the current gaps. The fourth objective is to include multiple climate risk in early warning system by implementing coastal climate downscaling. The fifth one is the co-design and implementation of solutions and decision support systems for various applications, such as fisheries, search and rescue, nature-based solutions, marine spatial planning, etc. All right, so this is my final slide. Some thoughts on how we should be heading. So probably we need to realize that there's already some existing capacities and work done in the region. So we need to leverage and build on this already established projects and programs in the region. For example, in the Pacific, we have the Digital Earth Pacific, which kind of works with satellite-based observations to provide services for various applications. And we in SPC we also have a climate downscaling project. There's another program called Climate and Ocean Support Program in the Pacific, which maintains a number of tidal gauges, builds and supports sub-seasonal to seasonal predictions in ocean services. We also need to realize the regional institutional capacities. So in the Pacific, we have the Regional Specialized Meteorological Center in Nadi, that's in Fiji, which provides operational weather forecasting for a number of Pacific Island countries. Of course, because some of the countries have very limited capacity to do that. In terms of cloud computing, there was some work done in terms of strengthening of high performance computing at RSMC Nadi, and probably we need to look at ways where we can work together and probably build on that. In terms of, I just wanted to highlight this, the traditional knowledge as well. There's a great kind of ask by the policy makers and community. They kind of relate more to traditional knowledge. People in the Pacific Islands are quite accustomed to traditional knowledge, and probably this is something which needs to be looked at as well. Finally, you need to realize the geography of the Pacific. It's quite remote, and the cost of doing business, many a times what happens is projects come and they're taken back when they realize the cost of doing business in the Pacific Island region. So just that word of caution that doing business in Pacific Islands can be expensive, relatively expensive compared to maybe many other parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bipendra. Are there questions? So you see here the diversity, but also I would say there are common solutions that we can envisage, again, clearly on the basis of what you're already doing. Because actually the Adaptation Fund sees very favorably to have already activities and strengthening of them. So it's okay. I mean, it's not that we have to start everywhere from scratch, because we will, will be submerged. So you mentioned something interesting, relocation. So you have experience in relocating people.
Yeah. So we have kind of relocated entire communities. In fact, we, so Fiji was for sure one of the first country to develop, standard operating procedures for relocation. There was a relocation guideline developed. There's, I think, dedicated funding created
Exactly.
For climate change relocation. We have had experiences with climate change relocation. We have, in fact, relocated 6 communities in Fiji. Wow. This is like, entire communities. If you go to these communities, all the houses look the same. But there's of course a number of challenges, like you are moving people from their livelihood to somewhere else, and yeah, so there's whole lot of things to be learned from that
We have a
experience.
growing group in CoastPredict, which looks to relocation in other countries too. So I may get in touch with them. This Professor Siders, for example, from University of Delaware, she is trying to find, how to manage the relocation. Yeah, and she's trying to find a managed relocation strategy for United States. Not an easy one. But you're certainly the one that can give incredible examples of this. Yeah, so thank you. Are there more questions on the? No, thank you. And now we end with the third region, Aleta Iniguez from the University of Philippines. And Aleta is one of the building blocks of CoastPredict. She has been with us from the first day, maybe -2. Yeah, thank you, Aleta.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. It's been a long day. This is the final stretch. Thanks for staying. And I'll just be sharing a little bit about our efforts in this Adaptation Fund proposal for the Southeast Asian region called E-Core Seas, or Enhancing Coastal Resilience in the Southeast Asia Seas. The slides contain a lot of the introductory stuff, which I will not go through anymore because you've seen this a million times. And we're all quite familiar. I'll go straight to, so the region, I just realized I don't have like a blown up map of the Southeast Asian region, because the last time I presented this was to Asia and there need so much of a map. So Southeast Asia seas are composed of 11 countries. So there's Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Brunei, Malaysia. Did I say Malaysia already? Yes. And
Indonesia.
yeah, Indonesia, Laos, Myanmar, and Brunei and Timor-Leste. I think that's it. Yeah. Did I miss something? I hope not. But there's a representation of 4 out of those countries in the, at least for now, in this proposal, and there are 7, I think, confirmed pilot sites in for this region. So essentially, I'll just go briefly through the process and the initial concept proposal we have. But I think the bulk of the discussion really started just on how to package this proposal during the big IOC Westpac conference last year. This was held in Thailand. And so Nadia was there, and we were discussing with a lot of the representatives in the countries and other officials on what would this kind of look like. And then, of course, Nadia was as she mentioned, in the Paris meeting to figure out these intricacies. And from there, July to October, there was a lot of consultation and online meetings with us between the countries, and the formation of the drafting group for this proposal. And so I'm here just representing that group. And then I think so recently, I'm part of the advisory group for the IOC Westpac, and I presented this to the IOC Westpac in November. So just note that the Westpac encompasses, of course, a much larger region, so including East Asian countries and so on. So Southeast Asia is just a part of that. So that was the IOC Westpac is supportive of this proposal. And the next month, in Tokyo, this will be actually should be presented at the 15th Intergovernmental Session of the UNESCO IOC Subcommission for Westpac. So I think this comes into bearing because of the discussion earlier about the political aspect of this, where there has to be national buy-in. So this intergovernmental session will be attended by representatives of the countries, and so the being aware of this initiative is quite important. And then hopefully from our side, from each country, would be coming the push from the ground to help align different peoples and at different levels. So looking into the context of the region, it's not actually, interestingly, it's not that far in terms of priorities from what Edgar showed in Ayo Caribe. So the main the key concerns are also in terms of disaster risk reduction, integrated coastal zone management, and in relation to marine spatial planning, and also the impacts of climate change on the coasts. And of course, there are other aspects with different weightings, but those were essentially the top three in the GlobalCoast survey that was conducted some time ago. And also in terms of the existing capacity, actually I thought this was interesting. So in terms of what were the lowest perceived capacity, at least, there was the remote sensing was mid-level or not so much used apparently in the pilot sites in the area, which definitely provides a lot of room for improvement. And then the data management plan is that is, I think, minimal in those pilot sites. So, but in situ observations and forecasting systems are high. This is likely in situ observations more on field sampling, more manual rather than any automated technologies. And then forecasting, I think this is more weather or the meteorological aspect or short-term ones rather than any climate or historical long-term capacity. So some of the specific needs that were noted at the time were the importance and the need for time series. So it really is, I think the long-term monitoring efforts are limited in many of these sites. Of course, the forecasting projection capacity. And there's also highlighting the coral bleaching concern, especially since this is part of the coral triangle and very rich in biodiversity. And some of the more basic or foundational aspects are still limited, like mapping the marine and coastal resources and characteristics. And then the development of more targeted and conservation management strategies for particular benthic habitats. So this is the start of that concept note for the proposal. 4 countries are represented, and then as already discussed, that we're trying to have we have the IOC UNESCO as the implementing entity. So these are the proposal partners for Southeast Asia. So you have in Indonesia, the BRIN, and in Malaysia, you have Eileen and myself, and also our meteorological agency. Yes. Yeah. Yes, so that's Pagasa. And then Anukul is here. And from Indonesia and Vietnam, the meteorological agency, we're still firming that up. And also we're hoping to pull in Vietnam, but we're still working on that. So I think through the past months, we've been trying to get not just the academic researchers, but also but the meteorological agencies together with us.
I guess for Malaysia and the Philippines, we have them on board.
Yes. Yeah. So it helps.
So we have Pagasa, in fact, yeah.
And then also in terms of the implementation side, so then the ones at the national level who are accredited to approve the Adaptation Fund are, for all of these countries, are the ministries or the departments for the environment. So I think it's important then for each of those countries, for us to link up with those ministries and the people that are identified as the key people or key persons. So actually, as you saw, these are similar. The draft objectives are similar with the Pacific. And I'm not sure about the IOC Caribbean, but so I will not go through this anymore because this was already shown. And with the early warning and the different the monitoring systems and the data facilities and the early warning and climate aspects. So those are similar for now, I guess. But then and also I think the 5 components, that's also that would be like CoastPredict across the Adaptation Fund proposals. That would be kind of the stamp as well. So but I guess I don't know how specific objectives, specific outputs might be tailored more specifically to the region, especially if the dialogues with the national entities might need to refine those to represent specific national needs. So some regional considerations, and we had a more detailed survey or discussions on the proposal, and some of the concerns or considerations that came out were, for example, for the cloud computing infrastructure, that I guess to have that more of a engagement with the local expertise, and not just a top-down kind of approach, even with this infrastructure. And of course, aligning with any existing monitoring programs in the country or region. And then for the multi-hazard early warning system, the importance of incorporation of the multi-risk scenarios. And then, the capacity enhancement and policy integration to really engage the research institutions in the different countries and promoting cross-sector collaboration. So that's important with having the meteorological agencies on board, but also beyond them, also the other relevant agencies. So like we have disaster risk management offices in the Philippines, and also the other coastal or environmental agencies might need to get on board at some phase or some part. In terms of sustainability and governance, there's a need to clarify responsibilities for whether maintaining or how to use the cloud repository, the cloud platform. I think in our region, it's still difficult to get more consolidated data or sharing data. It's not easy. So I think this, especially with the cloud and data sharing aspects, this has to be figured out somehow. How, especially if this is more on from the government side, where there are intricacies there. And then, of course, importance of embedding the early warning systems and adaptation planning into the actual policies in however form that they would take in the specific context of the countries. So I think that's it for the Southeast Asian region. So thank you very much.
Questions, please? Yes, Jay.
Tomorrow in the breakout, we're going to be talking about the infrastructure, clouds and what have you. And one of the questions that came up today in that, and it's going to come up tomorrow, is how specialized or how unique do we have to create the clouds for each region, or how much can you use of a central capability, central design, not specific capability, and how much of it would have to be adapted? And I wanted to ask that question of all three of you. I wish there was a panel up there as to the uniqueness here.
I don't think in terms of cloud, the overall design is probably, I don't think it would be that different. I think the particulars will come into how the scenarios that the information or models will be used, and also the access or any security concerns. That might be the more particular ones. Overall, the design, like how it's the architecture, I don't think it's different.
Is the other two regions, do they have that same philosophy? Edgar?
Coming from here until we have the discussion.
There is a difference, as mentioned in the Caribbean, the West Caribbean, the Western and the Eastern Caribbean. So in this island, the small island, the capacity is complicated. No, let's say this is less. And for example, in the case of the hurricane warnings and advice, so even it was necessary to include the so-called M-wing. So there was a system only one way. So they received the information, but they cannot transmit. So there is a need to really have a better assessment on this for the cloud. So I have not an answer. So, but I mentioned that is complicated. Even in the WMO, several times we have this experience that they say, okay, no problem, we do that virtual. Okay, and then the internet don't work. So it's impossible. So, or the second, that was someone mentioned, okay, we are speaking only one language. Okay, choose the language. Mexicano. We're speaking Mexican, or we're speaking in which language? Is English? Why English? So it's a complicated matter, no? And I think in discussion with Secretariat, we made it. You say this global cost and all these documents at least need to be translated in minimum in Spanish and French. So I have three, because then when we discuss with the national entities, we cannot come with our document in English because perhaps they will not feel happy, no? Mm. But this iCloud is a matter that we need to think, no? Very careful. It's because the graphic is good, but implementation is complicated.
Yeah, so just to add to that discussion, I mean, to be honest, in the Pacific Island region, we have some concerns regarding cloud computing. And like what you mentioned, kind of a top-down approach. And and particularly, probably it's related to the fact that in the Pacific Island region, due to our unique challenges and limited experiences with cloud computing. In fact, what we would like to and love to see is that some sort of, we are not discarding cloud computing, but it would be really great if we can do some sort of a feasibility study of cloud computing versus probably HPC at RSMC, NAND, or what works best for our unique geographical location. So just wanted to add.
This is an important point. So, in fact, you have seen that there is a phased approach to the cloud. And cloud computing is something that we are not addressing immediately because of the questions that you have raised. So it can be done, okay, but it clearly has to be done properly. The question of Jason about how big is the capacity that you have. I mean, for climate downscaling, we are talking about the real big one, but also for forecasting. Okay, so that's we will have to be prudent, have the right phases. The phases are a key. They have user cases and things of that. So the phasing is fundamental. But the cloud is also the data lake. And the data lake has the possibility of having common best practices among different data sets, and also make available satellite information, for example, of multiple sensors from multiple satellites in a common format. And so these are a matter of importance, because if we want to start to collect the available open source information and not go into the problem of learning how each server that gives that open ocean works, you want to have machine do it. That's not so much right. But when it arrives there, you need to have a best practice for a data management structure. Okay, so first, the data lake is very important, is the first. And then my opinion, I would propose, and then we have also experts that can advise on that. The other thing is, when we put the new data, that's my big experience. In the Med, we had nothing when we started. So there was no observations sent in real time, right? Nothing in real time. So we had to build, it was 1995, so okay, 1998, and we had to build the system. And, if we look at the long time series immediately, all the stations that have been maintained and so on, that is difficult to share. We arrived in the Mediterranean after 12 years to that, but we did. And we instead, with the new observations, the new observing system that we are going to put in through the common projects, then we can ask that to automatically go on the cloud. So that is something is a goodwill kind of, is a win-win situation, because then this new information comes in addition to the fact that we should impose that the new observations have some kind of open source. Okay, it clearly is a little bit delicate with respect to the Mediterranean experience, because at that time we were looking at the basin scale, so the open ocean. Open ocean is better than the coast, is less of an issue. And also, we have to start with data that are easily shareable, such as non-pollution data. So, I mean, there are many rules. You know, we work with a lot of agencies and a lot of interesting. This is also why the satellite data is overwhelming importance, because you can get a lot of information from the satellite data on the biogeochemistry, on the chemistry, and so that you can start with. Okay, so, and then you get the, in situ sensor for calibration and for sure, but then is the second step. So this phase, to conclude, because otherwise, I know this is my best part. So is get a phased approach. We take a phased approach. We build what is possible to build, and we do testing of the additional pieces. Testing, and clearly we have to be trusted by the people. So there is nothing to do. And then we have another one. The last comment is that internet is the issue, but internet is the issue for everybody. It's not an issue for the cloud. It's an issue. So if we ever come to some degree of focusing the attention on this, you said it the first time that we talked to you about this, was impressive to me, because you said, oh, so I shouldn't worry about hardware, I should worry about the internet and the software. I said immediately, exactly. So that's exactly what you should be worried about, is get people that know about software that works in appropriate systems, modern systems, and the cloud is one of them, and have good internet. So how do we go from our GlobalCoast project to internet? This is an interesting question. I have some ideas, maybe we can explore. Okay, so, but this is the issue. Internet is vital for the communities. So it's not only for the cloud. Okay, sorry. We need to close, yeah. Sorry, you'd like to say something? Picture. Yeah. The heroes. Make it work. So I don't see that either.